When I look at the topic that's being addressed today at the summit, and I think about what really can be accomplished if you bring together groups across the spectrum, drug courts, professional monitoring groups, collegiate recovery communities, and then recovery communities, a couple of things come to mind. First of all, I think that the idea of sharing approaches and sharing models and sharing perspectives can be very helpful. So often we stay siloed in our work. We only think about what impacts the population we're dealing with, when in many ways, in looking at recovery, there is a huge continuum. Just like we talk about continuum of care, there's a huge continuum of services. And I think one of the first things that can be accomplished by bringing together a group such as this is the ability to be able to share ideas, share models, share concepts, and find what we often call, I'm afraid, almost too loosely, best practices. And the ability to be able to focus on what are we doing that can bring the most success to the largest number of people can be a huge asset. When I think about the different treatment providers and I think about my experience and the vantage point I've had over the years, the first thing I think about is what model is used. And I think about what did we find that was successful in collegiate recovery that could be helpful to other groups. And throughout the years that I worked in the program, we focused on a model of social support. And it involved a lot of different elements such as structured support, informational support, companionship, things that really met the needs of the students that we worked with. And I think about that model and I look at how it could be effective in drug court experiences or how it could be effective with professional monitoring groups. Because what it did, it provided a core for us to go back to. And so many programs today are put together, somewhat haphazardly without looking at the research that allows a model to emerge that really meets the needs of the people that are being served. I think about when I was at Texas Tech with the Center for the Study of Addiction and Recovery, we had an incredible relationship with our local drug court. And we worked with the judge. We were oftentimes sent people to be part of the drug court experience, to help find sponsors, to work with people, and even financially to begin to look at scholarships to help those involved in the drug court system to be able to go to college if they so chose. And I think those kind of relationships can be forged if both parties are willing to look at the benefit that is very reciprocal. In many ways, it's almost a continuum. For those people involved with drug court, the opportunity to go on to a university to study can be an absolute game changer for the trajectory of their lives. And for our students, working with other younger people involved in drug court was a way for them to really look at, very many of them, where they had been and where they were today, which provided a huge amount of support for them and validation for the choices they had made in going forward with their recovery. I think when you consider research opportunities and you look at the different means that are being used to help people in recovery and the different modalities, a couple of things come to mind that I think can be really exciting and really productive and helpful. The first are to look at these different models and then do some outcome studies looking at what models appear to be the most successful, what models appear to meet the needs of the people that we're serving the best. Are they social support models? Or are they more models that are focused on deterrence or aversion? What is it that really works? And I think one of the most exciting research pieces could be looking at this longitudinally. That what happens when someone starts out in drug court and goes on to a collegiate recovery community and then potentially a graduate school and then potentially onto a professional experience. And you look at what elements and what experiences were the most important for that person that allowed them to make that transition from drug court to being a physician, to being an attorney. And I have seen that happen in many, many situations. And it's one of the most exciting and rewarding things. But to be able to look at the research on determining what factors made that possible, I think could be very exciting. I think when we consider technology transfer and we consider metrics and measurement throughout this field, there are some stumbling blocks that we've come upon over and over again. And the first are accepted standardized measures. What does recovery look like? What is recovery? And we have to take it to that level. If we're going to look at these different organizations, it has to be more than use. It has to be more than what is going on in terms of just drug use and abstinence. It has to look at more emotional responses, depression, anxiety. It has to look at the ability to engage and find social support, the ability to have a sense of well-being. What does that look like? The ability to look at the resilience that has been built through recovery. And I think that one of the most important things we can do is we can look at validated, standardized assessments that are available in the public domain that everyone can access, and therefore we can be actually comparing apples with apples and oranges with oranges. And it would give us a huge opportunity to find research that helped everyone look at the programs that they were working on and working with and finding out the impact of those programs. In looking at measuring recovery outcomes and in really digging a little bit deeper to look at what that means and what that looks like, I've actually recently been involved in some work with a colleague of mine looking at recovery and resilience from a neuroscience perspective. And what we found that I think is really exciting is that we found that not only is resilience important and is it a huge factor in recovery, but specific factors involving resilience that seem to really make a difference. There are three of them that were significant. The first one is social support, which is consistently what you find in all the literature. Everyone that works in the field of recovery knows, and everyone that even experiences recovery knows, that the huge impact of social support is an absolute necessity. It can be a deal breaker if you don't have it in terms of recovery. So that wasn't very surprising. The second one, which was a little surprising and exciting, that really speaks to why collegiate recovery communities work and drug courts work, and I think in some ways professional monitoring programs work, was that very important characteristic of structured style. And when you think about structured style, what you're really talking about is that ability to respond to organization, to know where you're supposed to be. This morning you're going to get up, you're going to go to class at 8 o'clock, you're going to be in my office at 9 o'clock, you're going to work on homework at 10 o'clock, or you're going to show up at drug court at 4 o'clock and you're going to be there and you're going to talk to the judge about anything that provides you with a structure in your life seems to be incredibly important in building resilience. And the final characteristic that was not as significant but still significant was that of personal perception and how you saw yourself. Do you see yourself as a recovering person? Do you see yourself as a person that can succeed? Do you see yourself as a person that's able to go out into the world and be able to do something with your life now that you've entered in recovery? So what we know from some of this research is there's so much more to know, and there's so much more to learn about the actual phenomena and experience of recovery, not only from a neuroscience standpoint, but also from a behavioral standpoint. How do we best put together programs that support the actual nature of recovery? In conclusion, when I think about what are the important takeaways, What are the things that when you look at an experience like this summit, an alliance of different groups of people that have come together for the same purpose to help other people actually realize their dreams, change the trajectory of their lives, stay active and successful human beings, that you have to look at what is it that we provide them that gives them the tools to be able to go forward. And you have to look at what model do you use? How do you see this? What are some of the things that you haven't thought about that could be helpful? What we've learned from collegiate recovery communities has been huge in terms of finding ways to help students in a terribly uncomfortable environment of a college campus if they're in recovery. What have we found that works for them to allow them to flourish? And how can those elements be transmitted to a drug court environment? How can those elements be transferred to a professional monitoring environment or to a community recovery center? And the ability to be able to share working knowledge that's been successful, the ability to be able to integrate other people's ideas, the ability to be able to do research across the different programs to find what seems to be most successful, allows us the one thing we all care about the most. What can we do for the person that is still suffering? And if we can find the answer to that through integration, through working together, through developing programs that would help each other, then we've really accomplished the basic goal of our field.